Hi, everybody. My name is Olivia James, and I'm a therapist and coach, and I deal with the dark side of entrepreneurship. I'm also very interested in the concept of realistic resilience. And here I am with my new showbiz best friend, Frank King. Hello, Frank.
Yes.
Frank was a writer on The Tonight Show for 20 years. The Tonight Show, if for those in the UK, is a bit of a big deal. Is that right?
Yes, one of the original 3 late night shows.
Okay. And then also you're, as they say, for your sins, you're a comic for your sins. And a professional speaker as well.
Yep.
And your special subject is?
Suicide prevention as a workplace health and safety issue. Odd for a comedian.
Yes, it is. It is indeed. So we've got lots of exciting things to talk about, and it's quite amazing, as you've said in some of your TEDx talks, like as soon as you mention that word,
Oh, God.
it opens up conversations with people, doesn't it?
Yeah, should we tell the story about the cruise ship?
Do it.
Okay. Back in the day, not long ago, when people took cruises, I worked as a comedian on a cruise ship, which, by the way, being a speaker, you have to have takeaways and learning objectives and action items.
Wow.
And doing stand-up comedy, you don't have to teach anybody anything.
No.
So it's just delightful. And I did a show. The next morning, I'm in the Lido buffet, and it's a day at sea, so the place is packed. You know, nobody's going ashore. Couldn't find a seat. And there's a woman at a table for 2. I look at the seat, point, she nods, I sit. She looks up, she goes, "Hey, are you the comedian?" I go, "Hey, did you enjoy the comedy show?" She goes, "I did." And then she starts laughing. "What would you have said?" Oh, I said, "Then I'm the comedian." And she starts laughing. She goes, "What would you have said if I told you I hated the comedy show?" "They tell me I look an awful lot like him." She goes, "Is comedy all you do?" And this is right before I was going to do my first TEDx talk, where I was going to come out as depressed and suicidal, and begin my suicide prevention speaking career. I said, "No, I'm a public speaker." And I said, "Listen, if you don't mind a little bragging, I just nailed down my first TEDx talk." She goes, "I love the TEDx talks. What's the topic?" Now, as you and I have talked about, nobody talks about depression or suicide unless you mention it out loud, and then everybody's got a story. So I knew when I answered her, I believed that I knew what was coming. So I said to her, "I'm speaking on depression and suicide." And I actually started a countdown in my head, 3, 2, 1. And she goes, "You know, I tried to kill myself twice." We have just met. I mean, she saw me on stage, but it's our first, live conversation. She goes, "First time in college, not particularly serious, half-hearted. Second time, far more serious." She goes, "I had graduated college. I had graduated medical school. I had the knowledge. I had the equipment. I had the IV started in my ankle. I had the suicide cocktail in one hand, syringe in the other, getting ready to load up the syringe. Phone rings." So she thinks, should I answer it? Well, I better answer it, because it might be somebody who, if I didn't answer, would worry, come over and interrupt. Picks up the phone. It's her 13-year-old son. And she goes, "I don't know if you had a premonition or heard something in my voice, but he said, 'Mom, don't do anything.'" So she said, I didn't give up on the idea of suicide, but I decided not to do it that day, because I knew he would always wonder, wasn't there something he could have said or done to stop my suicide? By the way, the good news is there are things you can say, there are things you can do, because 8 out of 10 people in that position are ambivalent. They want somebody to interrupt. I said, "Well, how old is your son now?" She said, "He's 21. I said, "Does he know his phone call saved your life?" She goes, "No." How do you start that conversation? So at that moment, I got chills, and I realized that was going to be the theme of my first TEDx talk and my speaking career, starting the conversation on suicide. Because if you mention it out loud, everybody's got a story about themselves, a family member, friend. So that was the genesis of in my book. Even when I do a memoir, it's going to be called "Starting the Conversation on Suicide, Living in the Exit Row," because I have 2 mental illnesses: major depressive disorder, better known as depression, and something called chronic suicidal ideation, much more rare. And chronic suicidal ideation means, for me and people in my tribe, suicide is always an option on the menu as a solution for problems large and small. And when I say small, and I'm sure you heard this in my TEDx talks,
Yes.
My car broke down. I had 3 thoughts unbidden: get it fixed, buy a new one, or I could just kill myself. That is chronic suicidal ideation.
Yeah.
And that, by the way, every time I've spoken except once, somebody in the audience has chronic suicidal ideation, but they did not know it had a name. They just thought they were some kind of freak. And because of the way they thought. And when they hear me say that out loud, a young woman at a college show came up afterwards. Thank you for your keynote. You're welcome. She goes, but I got to tell you, it made me weep. How did it make you weep? She goes, you know your story about the car, get it fixed, buy a new one? You could just kill yourself. She goes, I've been having those thoughts all my life. I didn't know it had a name. I thought I was some kind of freak. And when I heard you say that out loud, I thought for the first time in my life, I'm not alone. And I wept, which for me is extremely therapeutic. And because I think I may have steered her and other people just far enough off the path to suicide by letting them know they're not alone.
Yeah.
They live a normal life. And then it hit me one day after all these people had come up and said this basic same thing, that I'm sort of like the character George Bailey in It's a Wonderful Life. You know, he's shown by the angel what people's lives would be like if he weren't there. And I realized I've been shown what people's lives would be like if I were not there to speak and let them know they, in fact, are not alone. And my second thought was, great, now I can't kill myself.
Yeah.
Because I take all those people with me.
Exactly. Yeah, there exactly is no pressure there basically now for you. But
No.
but when you do get super depressed, I'm assuming that there are still times when, you know, when your altitude, you know, you like you talk about altitude, right?
Yeah.
There I'm assuming that having depression and chronic suicide ideation, there's going to be some days where you're closer to like thinking it's a good idea than other days, right?
Yes, you know, and I'm sure you're aware of this, maybe the listeners aren't, major depressive disorder cycles.
Yes.
It's like a wheel with a flat spot. And with the medication I take, it doesn't happen as often, doesn't last as long. But for most people, it lasts anywhere from 2 days to 2 weeks and recurs. And there are times when, you know, when the world overwhelms me and I, you know, have that passing thought, oh, I could just kill myself. Not really a serious thought after all this time. The young woman from the college, she said to me, Frank, I thought I would grow out of this chronic suicidal ideation. I said, honey, I'm 62. If I'm going to grow out of it, I better go home and get started. Mm. But yeah, with medication and my safe care plan, diet, exercise, good night's sleep, you know, meditation, it happens, but not as often as it did, not as long as it did, and not as deep a depression as it was.
Mm-hmm. Good. No, that's interesting because so I know that you're like super fit and you take really good care of yourself, and I know that that's going to presumably help to get all your body you know what I mean, to stop your body getting really low and so I know that from my training as a trauma therapist that obviously for all of us the survival instinct is uppermost. For most people that's the deepest sort of automatic instinct that we have, right? And I know that sometimes when things get really low and depressed and the systems kind of slow down and everything gets duller, then that survival instinct isn't as strong. Is that kind of what you've noticed? Obviously there is another layer to it where somebody has a specific, would you say it's a chemical imbalance in that sense, or just a different brain chemistry? How would you classify the chronic suicide ideation and the depressive disorder?
Yeah, the exercise serves two purposes. One, the healthier you are physically, you know, like I said, the better the systems operate. And two, well, when I go to the gym and I'm over 60, I've competed in a bodybuilding contest in the master's class. And that allows me a way to achieve and excel outside of what I do for a living, completely outside of what I do for a living. You know, I can see the results in the mirror. I can go to the bodybuilding contest. I came in third in one category, fifth in another. So, but that has nothing to do with speaking. So you stay in good shape because the healthier you are, the better your outcomes.
Yes.
And then stay in good shape because it's something where I can achieve and so forth outside. And the thing about the gym is, if I'm in Eugene, Oregon, where I am right now, or I'm with you on Harley Street, if there's a gym and we walk into either one, a 25-pound dumbbell always weighs 25 pounds. Now in London, it may say, X number of kilograms, but still it's it's a constant.
Mm-hmm.
The machines are roughly the same. The weights weigh the same. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where with mental illness, there aren't a lot of constants in your life. So you seek out a schedule. It's always best to have a schedule, and B, things that remain constant, like all the stuff in the gym. So.
Yeah. So we have a lot of things in common, you and I. A lot of our friends and colleagues are professional speakers and comedians and weirdos. So when it comes to what's just happened with COVID, I know that many people have got massively hit by massive changes. Many people have lost their income or certainly got taken a big hammering, as we would say here. So when it comes to a big external trauma like that, how does that affect somebody who isn't super steady mentally anyway?
Well, I imagine there are people with mental illness who are suffering more because of the pandemic, the social distancing or physical distancing. But I've also discovered that a good number of my mentally ill friends are handling it very well. And I noticed, I got a call from one of my neurotypical friends early on in March. And he said, "Frank, you're in the mental health business, right?" And I go, "I'm not a clinician, but yes, sort of." And he goes, "Well, listen, I'm feeling this particular way, and there must be a mental illness name for this." I go, "Well, describe the symptoms." He goes, "I can't eat, can't sleep, or eat too much and sleep too much. I have trouble getting out of bed in the morning. I can barely drag myself into the bathroom, shave, and I can't tell you the last time I did a load of wash. I'm just a wreck. Is there a name? Is there a mental health name for that?" And I go, "Yeah, it's Wednesday." Because, if you have mental illness, you live in pretty much an uncertain world every day.
Yeah.
So I've been doing webinars, podcasts, radio interviews, teaching people, neurotypical, neuronormal people, how to use the techniques that mentally ill people use to survive day in, day out in a very uncertain world. There's three things, the safe care plan we talked about. There's something called gamification. And then you have to advocate for yourself in a variety of areas, those three things. And bottom line is control the things you can control. You got to let the rest go. So some folks with mental illness, I do believe, are probably suffering more than they would have otherwise. But a lot of us are pretty much well equipped to handle, I said to somebody, it's like being an actor and you star in the Walking Dead zombie show for 7 years. And then there is a zombie apocalypse. And you're like, "I got this. We built a fort, we plant some vegetables, make sure you stick them in the head to kill them." I mean, we know how all this works. So yeah, I've got another podcast later today on for a big safety outfit on social distancing and staying sane.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry about your mentally ill friends. And so it's been nice to be able to teach those skills to people who probably are suffering from, a lot of them, situational depression.
Yes, exactly.
And they may need, look, if medication's indicated, you're not going to be taking the rest of your life.
Exactly. Yeah. What one of my mentors, who's a psychologist, calls a reactive depression.
Yeah.
I actually, you and I connected on Twitter, and John Ronson, who's quite a famous kind of writer, who he wrote the Men Who Stare at Goats and various other books about it. So he tweeted and said, I've had anxiety all my life and I feel oddly calm in this. So I like replied and said, well, there's a whole thing in one of the therapies I'm trained in, provocative therapy, where you actually start to sort of exaggerate the threat and turning up. So I said, in a way, you've like rehearsed all this stuff in your head the whole time, and you probably rehearsed worse. And and he liked my tweet, so I was like, yes. So it's quite an interesting. It's been an interesting thing. So one of the I think that many people struggle with is this feeling that they don't have control, and for other people they kind of thrive on that. You know, most people, like you probably talking about neurotypical people, that they are used to being in control of stuff, right?
Oh yeah, and
They're used to like I do this and then this happens, and for many people that has been, the rug's been pulled from out from under them, hasn't it?
Yes, and the coaching call I had, actually, it's a TEDx coaching client who was doing some marketing for me. And we were talking about that very thing. And most of my marketing in the past had been toward mental health speaking. But because here in the US, we have no idea when people are going to begin to go back and convention live and bring in speakers live.
Yes.
And so I coach TEDx. So I have shifted all my marketing to coaching TEDx, because that's something I can do from my house.
Yeah.
But people who've been working in a very structured environment, going to work every day at 8, coming home at 5, you know, when they get to work, they know what they're going to do, what they're expected to do, you know what I mean? And they come home and all of a sudden they are, you know, at loose ends. There's two things. Uncertainty. I like this metaphor. Somebody said to me, if you were told, Frank, you have to run 20 miles. Okay. And you get to mile 15. Well, you know that you're 3/4 of the way there, and you figure I could probably make the next 5. But if somebody came to you and said, okay, I want you to run. How far? Don't know. When do I stop? Not sure. I mean, you know, just running and not knowing, will it ever end?
Yeah.
So that I thought was a great metaphor for the uncertainty surrounding.
Exactly.
I interviewed an astronaut who was in the space station for a year. And they asked him, how do you, and socially isolated for the most part, except when they delivered groceries, how do you survive that? And he goes, well, one word, schedule. And that's what I preach on to neurotypicals. You need a schedule. I know you don't have to get in the car to commute to work, but I would get up at the same time every day, go to bed at the same time every night, plan your meals, meditation, your recreation, your Netflix, you know, keep your media consumption to a minimum, and have it. And if you have a house full of people, sit down with the fam, as they say over here, the fam, and work out, get a whiteboard and work out everybody's schedule. So everybody's got to, you know, kind of knows what they're going to be doing and when they're going to be doing it. And you know, try to create some certainty in a really uncertain situation.
Interesting. So you mentioned your number 2 thing as part of like the advice is gamification. Can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes, that's something, again, mentally ill people often do. The most obvious example is sometimes in the morning it's difficult to get out of bed. And I guess it's a simile I use for that is like the Greek god Sisyphus, who gave fire to man, was punished by being forced to roll a rock up a hill every day with the idea that at some point he'd get the rock over the hill and could quit. And every day he gets near the top of the hill and it rolls back down to the bottom. So when you have a mental illness, it's like being Sisyphus. You wake up every morning and right there by the bed, there's a rock and a hill. And you've got to roll the rock up a hill. Some days the rock is small, the hill's not so steep, it's not that difficult to get out of bed. Some days the rock is a boulder, the hill is Kilimanjaro, and it's all you can do to get out of bed, put your feet on the floor, and move forward. So what I do is, if I'm in that state where it's a giant rock and it's Kilimanjaro, I make a list of half a dozen things. This is the game. Half a dozen things to-do list. And the game is, as soon as I scratch off number 6, I can go back to bed, pull the covers over my head. I don't care if it's 3 in the afternoon, broad daylight, and binge watch Netflix. I win. So the game gets me. The gym is 25 minutes from here by car, but the longest mile for me is from my bed to the car. And so I set it up, the game, If I get to the gym and go inside, I can do 1 rep on 1 machine and then turn around and go home.
Yes.
I've never done that, but because I usually end up spending half hour and a
I
half.
love it. I love it.
I will say this: flew to Chicago for my last gig before this hit, and it was a lovely Hilton, and they had a great gym downstairs. And it was 6 o'clock at night. I put on my gym clothes, go downstairs. I got up on the elliptical runner, and I thought, I am so tired. I just want to go to bed. I thought, oh, I got this. Minute and a half on the elliptical. Good night. And next morning, got up, did an hour because I was, but so I actually, I don't usually pull the trigger on do one thing and leave. But that night, it got me to the gym. I did my minute and a half, and
I love it. There's one of my friends who's an entrepreneur who actually is recovering like from a pretty serious suicide attempt. He was incredibly close. Recommended this book to me called Atomic Habits by James Clear. And it's all about changing, doing little things and making them really easy. And also like making that, starting with really small little things, like you said, and making them easy. Like, for example, if you want to go to the gym, make sure all your stuff's laid out the night before. Yeah. And like you said, the just getting there is the most difficult thing. Another friend of mine is a hypnotherapist, and she talks about, just breaking things down into really small things. Now, the question comes, once you've done those 6 things, have you ever gone back to bed afterwards?
No, not 3 in the afternoon.
No. So years ago, I went to, have you ever heard of a thing called the Glastonbury Festival?
Mm-mm.
So the Glastonbury Festival is like the biggest music festival in this country. I think it was started like Jimi Hendrix played there back in the day, and it's on a farm, and it's massive. Obviously, it's been cancelled, this year, but years ago, and it's huge. So everybody camps. It's a bit like, it's incredible. And years ago, my friend Merlin, his actual name, had a friend who bought these drummers from Ghana, and they were playing Glastonbury. And it was like I was part of a few people that were like taking care of them. And these are like, they've never been to England. And this is in the day when lots of people are vegan now, right? Lots of people are vegan here, but in those days, nobody really was. And we were cooking all these vegan food for these African dudes who were not, they were more into their meat and fish, shall we say. So they would take like a whole plate of this food that we'd made for them. And then they would like have some and they would hate it. So their manager started to say to them, try small. And this has become my thing for tasks as well. Like you said, like the smallest little tasks. And then it's kind of like, going to a party, and you might probably like it when you get there. And I think it's a little bit like that with the habits. So once you've done those 6 things, the smallest things, then you're sort of in the mood. Do you know what I mean? I think you've lost your wanting to go back to bed thing.
Yeah, forward motion is not an antidote to depression, anxiety, stress, but I do believe it is palliative. And I also have something, the third. So it's the third besides the bed and the gym. I have something called half-hour power. I can do just about anything for half an hour. So what I do is, if I'm in a bad state, bad place mentally, but I need to get my taxes done. On that list of things to do, I have taxes, 30 minutes, and I set a timer. And when timer goes off, I can do anything else on the list, cut the grass, clean the garage, whatever, 30 minutes. And then I go back to taxes, because the taxes is every other 30 minutes because they have to be done.
Got ya.
But I give myself a 30-minute break doing something that's like cutting the grass that's mindless. And I can put on my Audible and listen to a good story. And then I come back to the taxes and generally, even though I've been dreading doing them, I can get them done in a day if I dedicate every other half an hour, because I can do just about anything for half an hour. So that's the third way that I use it.
That's fantastic. We're talking about famous depressives. I want to talk about Alexander Hamilton. But first of all, Winston Churchill, our great prime minister was famously had his black dog. He had the depression, and
Yes.
he's I don't know if you've ever been to his house, his country home, Chartwell, which is just south of London. His cure for depression, well, his treatment was to write a certain amount of words every day. He was a prolific writer. Lay like 200 bricks a day, and paint. And they, like you said, it isn't a cure. Forward motion. This was like his way of having that forward motion. And I think it's a strategy, isn't it? It's a coping strategy. It isn't necessarily a cure.
No. And by the way, in all that, if I'm in a bad place and I have to use that to get out of bed, use that to go to the gym, use that to get my taxes done, there have been days in my life where my only goal, not just for that day, but my only goal in life at that moment was to put one foot in front of the other until it was a socially acceptable time to go back to bed. So I'm not thinking beyond, it's kind of like the Alcoholics Anonymous or the 12-step, one day at a time. I don't allow myself to think beyond that day.
Yeah.
Until the depression lifts and I can begin seeing farther forward. But yeah, there are days when all my only goal is to get out of bed, put my feet on the floor and move through the day until it's socially accepted. That's why I love winter over here in Oregon, because the sun goes down at 4:30. So at 5 o'clock, I'm like, it's dark. I'm going to bed.
Yeah. So you've talked a lot about there is there is an upside, there's an evolutionary advantage potentially to people who are not neurotypical. So people who have bipolar disorder. I hate that word disorder, but like people who have who are bipolar or who are, who have ups and downs, for example, right? So
yes, over here, the vernacular is not have bipolar or are bipolar, but living with bipolar.
Yes, exactly. I heard a good one the other day about experiencing as well.
Yeah.
So it doesn't become your identity or you're experiencing. You're not a sufferer. You're not like,
Yeah, well, somebody said to me, your depression doesn't define you. No, it doesn't, but it is part and parcel of my being. I used to say I battle depression, realized battle means I can win and I can't. So I simply say I live with depression. It's kind of an uneasy truce like North and South Korea.
Yeah. Yeah, it's all right, let's get into the nitty-gritty. So when it comes to suicide, a lot of people say, oh, it's just the coward's way out. It's the easy way out. And like you and I both know that people who are struggling with depression are actually incredibly brave, because for them to survive as far as they have is actually they battled, right?
Yes, and they fought, and every day, like I said, there's a rock in the hill. And somebody said to me, if you died by suicide, that was a coward's way out. And I said, okay, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to get my nickel-plated .38 revolver. I'm going to pull the hammer back. I'm going to have you open your mouth. I'm going to shove the barrel in. Let's see how long it takes you to pee your pants. Because I've had the barrel of my gun in my mouth. I mean, it is not really a coward's. And then the second half of that is people say it's terribly selfish because didn't they think about the people they left behind? Ironically, there are three legs to the suicide stool. There's social isolation, you isolate. Two is you have crossed that barrier that you were talking about. Babies have, from the time we're infants, we have an amazing will to live, to survive.
Yes.
But you've crossed the barrier where you're willing to take your life. You're willing to, you've blown past that. And the third thing is a sense of burdensomeness. Oftentimes, the person thinking of suicide is thinking about the people they're going to leave behind because they believe, irrational, but they believe that the world would be a better place without them. So they are truly thinking about, their loved ones, friends, and family leaving behind. So in their mind, in my mind, it was a selfless act because my wife would have gotten $1 million in life insurance.
Yeah.
I can see how from the outside looking in, it appears terribly selfish.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. There is And I don't know if you know who Stephen Fry is. He's a very famous comedian and writer over here. So he has bipolar, and he's like, you know, incredibly witty, bright. And there's some footage, and I think in his documentary, in which my friend's parents were actually featured, my friend who committed suicide. He's in the middle of the depths of depression, and he's making a little video, and he just says, I just hate myself, I loathe myself, you know. And there is a lot of like self-loathing as well, I think, sometimes when people are that low.
Yes, and a great deal of pain,
Yes.
mental pain, and there's a physical manifestation of my depression. I don't know if everybody, but it feels like somebody's taken a cold hand, you know, very strong, cold hand, and wrapped it around my heart, squeezing. And I feel, I've said this many times, as if somebody is turning up the force of gravity, that I'm being dragged down more so than whatever gravity's average. And then I know, because as it begins to ease, I get to feel as if somebody's turning down the force of gravity. I mean, part of that having trouble putting one foot in front of the other is just that feeling the weight of the world.
Yes.
And people think, you know, I can't believe so-and-so wanted to die. Common question for me. Why did Anthony Bourdain want to die? My guess is he didn't want to die. He simply wanted to end the pain.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. I think that's exactly what I found sort of with my friends. So my friend who killed herself the most recently would, like, she would be like, when she was manic, she was like super creative. There weren't enough hours in the day. She was like up doing gardening and doing really cool stuff. And then often in the winter, she would get super depressed. And I remember like trying to go out for walks with her, and like, you know, and I would say to her, do you remember last winter you were really depressed and you wanted to die, and you got through it? And in her depression, she couldn't even remember that. She couldn't even have that rational perspective of thinking, yeah, I did feel like shit, like really appalling, and I got through it and I got better, and now I'm back. She didn't have that perspective.
Well, and I think, you know, people always talk about being present. Make sure you're 100% present. I think in her case, in my case, remember I said, my goal is to put one foot in front of the other that day.
Yes.
Until I wasn't thinking forward, and I wasn't thinking backwards about how good my life has been. I was completely 100% present in that day, in that moment. Couldn't see forward or backwards. And there's a hopelessness that goes, because, you know, hope is all about the future. Blessings are all about the past. Yeah. But if you're locked into one day and completely present in that day, in that pain, then, you know, it's
yeah,
hard to look at anything else or picture anything else.
Exactly. So let me have a look and see of my things. My notes have fallen. So my notes. Go on.
Go ahead.
Go on.
Let me prompt you a bit. You said that when she was in the manic phase, she was extremely creative and energetic, and probably didn't need a lot of sleep, didn't need a lot. There's another phase, which is magical, called hypomanic, between manic and depressed, where you're even more productive and charismatic and make inspired decisions. And it's a very attractive place. The problem is, it's very difficult, even with medication, to hold somebody at that altitude.
Yes.
And what they've done in the past is they've held people just below the depressive line, just below, rather than have them just above the depressive line in hypomania. And with people living with bipolar, because the hypomania and manic phases are so productive, it's very seductive not to take the medication.
Yeah.
The big problem is when you slip into the depressive phase, that's actually more dangerous. More people die by suicide in that depressive state of bipolar than do who have just ordinary garden variety depression as I do.
Yeah.
The low is lower
Yeah.
because the high, I assume it's probably by contrast. The high was so high
Yes.
and the low is so low.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And she was creative, as you said, and we talked about the book off air about bipolar advantage. And was your friend before she passed away? Was she of childbearing age?
She was actually menopausal, and I think her friend, a friend of hers, said she thinks the symptoms got worse. She felt that her menopause hadn't been treated well, and her friend, after she died, said she thinks that the hormone treatment would have helped her because she really went down afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah. The reason I ask is we talked about evolutionary advantages of mental illness. The research I did showed that the anthropologists believed back in the day of cavemen and cave women, they were all bipolar because they had 4 months in the summertime, roughly, to hunt and gather enough stuff to last through 8 months in the winter. And so they were manic hunters and gatherers. They were hypersexual because they had to keep the numbers up in the tribe. And to this day, women of a childbearing age are more susceptible to bipolar because of, from going back through to evolution. Young women were hypersexual then because they wanted to have as many children as possible because, life was short and brutish, the cavemen and women. And then what they would do is, as the days got shorter and colder, nights got colder, they would slip into a depressive phase, and they would just focus on bearing and keeping the children alive to the spring when the days got longer and warmer, and they'd fall back into the manic phase for 4 months in the summer. So it's, and we were talking about the 3 countries that have the largest number of bipolar folks: United States, Canada, Australia.
Yes.
It's in the book Bipolar Advantage, and the author believes it's because they are immigrant countries. These were countries that were settled by people coming from Europe. I guess in the case of Australia, it was a penal colony, so not everybody went voluntarily. But if you think about it, a lot of the people who came over from England on those ships, it was a perilous journey. I'm sure one out of 3 ships never even made it. Oftentimes there was a religious element with a very charismatic leader who was shunned there in England for their beliefs. Manic, perhaps. He believes the kind of people who would go would be people who are in something of a manic phase. Let's do it. Not really giving it a lot of thought. And so Canada, the United States, and Australia all, settled by immigrants from other places who were brave enough or foolish enough to make the journey. And he said, now the problem has become, you've got countries full of people with bipolar breeding with people who have bipolar. So the numbers continue to rise because of that particular paradigm. Anyway, that's and Alexander Hamilton, by the way, he believes is a classic example. Born somewhere in the Caribbean, single mom, poor, and of course he achieved great things.
Yes.
And the anecdotal reports from people, written reports from people around him, was that he could work round the clock for several days, writing or whatever he was doing.
Yeah.
Then he would crash and burn. And for a week or two, and then come back out the next day as if nothing had happened. And they believed that he was either in the manic or hypomanic phase where he was helping create the country.
Have you watched the musical?
Hamilton? No, I have not.
So there's a line in one of the songs, and it's like, why are you writing like you're running out of time? And like the guy who ended up killing him in the duel, Burr, he was like, they started after the war, they both became lawyers. Like Hamilton just basically went out of the starting blocks like nobody's business and massively overtook Burr in all these different areas, including law, including writing, like you said, pieces of bits of the Constitution, like all sorts of stuff, that's really interesting. There is no mention necessarily of the depression in Hamilton, but there is certainly that sense that his rate of what he produced was quite superhuman, really. So that makes a lot of sense.
Ladies' man, as they used to say, and they believe it was part of being bipolar, being hypersexual.
Oh, absolutely, definitely, yes, yeah, exactly. That's also referred to. I'd highly recommend it. I went and saw it this in London when it was still running, and it's on for those watching. It is also on Disney Plus now. There's a version of it, and it's brilliant. I love it. I love it. So, talking about entrepreneurship and the dark side of entrepreneurship. Once again, we're talking about people who are not normal, who are risk takers, who like with getting people onto the ships, are like able to like there's a term for this, like enroll other people, inspire other people, like get other people mobilized and moving. Like you say, charismatic, lots of energy, but also there's a price to pay. I know that some of the stats on entrepreneurship are also quite astonishing when it comes to mental health issues and suicide. And
yes, I actually read 2 studies on entrepreneurs and depression, thoughts of suicide. And both studies said roughly a third of entrepreneurs are depressed and suicidal. And it gave me the idea for my 4th TEDx, which is Suicide, the Secret of My Success, Dead Man Talking. Because I believe that, and the clinicians in both studies determined the causation, I guess, for the depression, thoughts of suicide was most likely long hours, little sleep, and unmet expectations. And I believe that's the case probably for maybe the majority of entrepreneurs. But having met a number of entrepreneurs and entertainers who think the way I do, I believe that the entrepreneurs are not depressed and suicidal because they are entrepreneurs. They, in fact, are entrepreneurs because they were depressed and suicidal.
yes.
And that's where I was. I was married to my first wife, wonderful woman, but we didn't belong together. Selling insurance, great business, but I didn't belong there because I belonged in the comedy club. I knew that. And I came to the juncture where I realized if I don't do something, change something, start doing comedy, which is where I belong, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah.
My second thought was, well, what have I got to lose? I can divorce my wife, quit my job, try comedy. If it works, great. If not, shoot, I can still kill myself. And I've met a number of people, a female comic friend of mine. She goes to me one day, she goes, Frank, do you want to know the dark story of how I got into comedy? Oh, I love dark. She goes, well, I'm working at this association in DC, good job, great benefits, but my only joy, 2 nights a week, open mic comedy. She goes, I came to the point where I realized if I don't quit my great job and do stand-up comedy, I'm going to kill myself. And I said, let me finish it for you. So you realized, wait a minute, I can quit my job, try the comedy. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I can kill myself. And she goes, how do you know that, honey? I don't just know that, I live that. But like most mentally ill people, I thought that was just me. I was the one person who thought, but I've met several entrepreneurs and other entertainers.
Yeah.
I believe Kate Spade and Anthony Bourdain both had similar mindsets.
Yeah.
Kate was she was the head of the accessories department at Vanity Fair magazine, big time job, worked her way up to it. And she tossed that aside to start her own fashion line. I believe she may have come to the point, because she had underlying mental illness untreated, where she thought, I'm not supposed to be reviewing other people's stuff. I'm supposed to have my own fashion line. And so she, if I stay doing this, good a job as it is, I'm going to kill myself. This is all speculation. But, if I should try it, and if it doesn't work out. Same with Anthony Bourdain. He was at Vassar, working in a couple of restaurants because he loved food, but studying something entirely different. I think he may have come to the point where he goes, it's a great major, great school, but this isn't me. If I stay here, I'm going to kill myself. I need to be at the Culinary Institute. Then he, realized, wait a minute, I could just quit school, go to the Culinary Institute. If it works out great, if it doesn't, I can still kill myself, which of course, unfortunately, both eventually did.
Have you read Kitchen Confidential? His first book, Anthony Bourdain's first book, Kitchen Confidential.
I've not.
There's a whole bit in it where he starts to work in this kitchen, and they're all basically like a group of like criminals and sailors, and he just loves the culture and he loves the insults, and they give each other like these sort of like dandy like insults. You, sir, are a blackguard and a, you know, bladder. And they are just rough as anything, and their hands are covered in burns, and he just loves it. And I think he loves that edgy side of it. He doesn't want boring and safe. You know, that was my kind of sense from that. One thing you said to me the other day about Kate Spade, that you had possibly heard that she was worried about seeking help because of her image. Was that your...
Her sister in an interview said that, of course, everybody in the family had recommended she get therapy. And she told her sister, and her sister said this in an interview after Kate had passed. She told her sister that she did not want to get therapy because if somebody found out, it would damage her, and I'm quoting, happy-go-lucky brand, end quote. Sad that she felt that way. I don't think she was medicated beyond self-medication, as was Anthony Bourdain, self-medication. And of course, Kate Spade hanged herself with her own scarf, which I'm sure did some damage to the brand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, you know, I said it in a TEDx talk. The day comes when the rock is a boulder and the hill is Kilimanjaro, and you're getting out of bed and you just can't move the rock. You're tired of living. Yeah. And you can't, you know, I came to that point, they did, and obviously took it farther. And in my TEDx talk on Suicide, the Secret of My Success, I think at the end, I say, my job is to make sure that whoever hears me speak, when they wake up in the morning, they can still move the rock.
Yeah. Yeah. That's amazing. Let's talk about family trauma. So I know that many people I've treated, for example, have got serious trauma, and that's one person has been through some, you know, really bad like sexual assaults, and her question to me was, she thinks, obviously I've recommended her to seek specialist help, but she thinks that the part of her that wants to kill her is actually like a younger version of her, that's terrified of being abandoned. So she said that the nearest little sniff of any kind of abandonment, this younger part of her just sort of kicks in. It's and there's potentially a borderline personality issue there. And obviously, you know, you and I aren't here in the business to give advice to somebody like that. But in a general thing, it's a really complex business. And sometimes it isn't just the adult self, you know, it's that protective part of them or another part of somebody that wants to, I think, stop the pain.
Or preempt the pain.
Yes.
I've got a friend who is like that. In every relationship he's had, he has blown them up because he gets a sniff, like you said, of them. They maybe they're losing interest, maybe they're going to break up with him, maybe. And so to avoid the pain of a breakup or being broken up with, he breaks up with them essentially, and harangues them and leaves them awful messages, and in an effort, he says, so they will never come back, you know, seeking to reconcile. He wants not just to break up, but to destroy them. And somebody said, yeah, it's the pain of being alone is not as bad for him as the pain of actually being left alone. So he'll live with the pain of being alone to avoid the pain of somebody, you know, breaking up or leaving.
Wow. Yeah. There is where people talk about self-sabotage. It sounds to me like, but often I think what self-sabotage is it's an attempt to protect the self, right? So yes. We've all known comics who are like brilliant, right? Absolutely brilliant, should be like up there, but somehow they self-sabotage. right? You will have known people like that. I certainly.
Yes. I've got a podcast partner who was a comic for a long time, getting a lot of traction. I mean, he had a following, and he ended up blowing it up in 10, 15 years ago because he was getting close to, launching, breaking through going above everybody else that he was, working
Yes.
with. And he just couldn't. When he got on stage, he was great. He loved being on stage, but those moments prior to, and the anxiety about, well, what if I crash and burn? He just said, I'm done. Now he's back to doing it. He got his master's in social work.
Wow.
He's back to doing stand-up and going to speak on a number of mental health topics. But yeah, he blew it up. He got close and he blew it up.
Yeah. I think people do, like you say, I mean, people do it to protect themselves from the pain. Obviously, he didn't want to lose. There's always like a cost, isn't there? There's a reward and a cost, and the cost would be, losing, basically not being one of that camaraderie would have gone, right? With the people who he'd overtaken.
Yes. Well, and I said this in a podcast yesterday. See, I don't think that way. My goal in life is to be a has-been, because that means I once was. So he's a has-been, yeah, but you know what? I enjoyed the ride.
That's really funny. A very dear friend of mine was friends with Lenny Bruce, by the way, and I actually did an interview with him. My friend Kai is like in his 80s now. Took some famous pictures of Lenny Bruce, but once again, quite a troubled, brilliant but troubled. Yeah. And also, like, I think in those days was getting a huge amount. Like these days, comics can pretty much say whatever they want, right? More up to a point. But in those days, I mean, I think there were people ready to arrest him. There were police.
He was arrested several times.
Exactly. Yeah.
He was a pioneer, because at that point, nobody had used bad language. Nobody had spoken out on political talk, because it was the Catskill comics. The one-liners, "Take my wife, please."
Yeah.
Those guys, and he was a pioneer.
Yeah, quite incredible. So when it comes to advice for people, we better leave people with some takeaways here. I'm going to put the UK links of helplines and stuff when I put this out, but certainly for the US. So your 3 pieces of advice to somebody that you will give in your talks what are they?
Well, you mean for someone who's depressed?
Yes.
That would be the self-care plan. Mine is diet, exercise, medication, meditation, and a good night's sleep. Gamification. Make a game of it so you can win and then reward yourself by doing what you really like to do, whether it's go back to bed or whatever. The third thing is be an advocate for yourself. If you're struggling, whether it's physically or mentally, reach out nowadays through telehealth and say, I'm hurting. And the third leg of that stool is, especially here in the US, reach out for financial help. The last recession, not everybody crashed and burned. This recession, pretty much everybody is having the issues paying the bills, the water, the electricity, the cable, the phone, the mortgage. So I tell people, look, you have to advocate for yourself. There's help available, but call the mortgage company, tell them what you're going through. All the companies have some kind of plan in place to make sure you don't lose your home, but you have to take the first step and advocate for yourself.
Yeah. Someone very close to me lost a relative recently through that sort of, in that scenario. And I think especially when it comes to people who are very proud.
Oh God.
Is like the admitting that they're in trouble. For many people, they would rather kill themselves, unfortunately, than have anybody know. One of my dear friends is a serial entrepreneur who says, often says, you just have to give up looking good. You just have to give up the idea of looking good, right? Sometimes.
Well, and the woman that's my TEDx coaching client who's turned over her, her marketing team to me as a trade, she had a very successful dental practice, and it for several reasons, it imploded, and she lost everything. And because she could not bring herself to tell anyone that she was less than perfect as a dentist, she found herself standing on a stool in the basement with a noose around her neck.
Yeah.
Now, the TEDx she's going to do, as luck would have it, she had her cell phone on her, and the phone rang as she's standing there with a noose around her. And so she's thinking, do I pick it up? So she picks it up. It's one of her patients who has a need of some kind, right now, like a broken tooth or something. And so she goes, okay. She takes the noose off her neck. She gets down off the stool and then went to treat the patient, and then realized in the process, holy smoke, that was close.
Wow.
Yeah, but she could not reveal to anyone that she had not been perfect.
Yeah, it's and it's quite amazing that something can snap somebody out of it that quickly.
Yeah, I just phone call.
A call like that, someone saying, oh, can you fix my tooth? I'm in pain. Like, oh, sure.
Well, and when we do her TEDx, I said on stage, there should be a stool on stage far enough away that they know it's not for water, but they don't know what it's for. And then at the point where you talk about you're near suicide, you bring it over, you mime that you've got a noose around your neck, and then from backstage, somebody activates a phone ringing, and let it ring.
Yeah.
2 times, 3 times, because by that time the people in the audience are going to be going, answer the phone. Yeah, and then she picks up the phone, gets down off the stool, and it's that surprise moment that should be in every TEDx. Somebody goes, oh, answer the phone.
There's a really brilliant video. It's like a parody of every TEDx talk. I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, it's because they can get really formulaic, can't they?
You think?
No shit.
Yeah, you can tell they've been coached. Hand here, hand there, left, right, center.
Exactly. So do you want to just briefly talk about your you may as well do a little advert for your TEDx coaching. So what makes you the go-to guy?
Well, I think it's I don't have a lot of systems in place or forms to fill out or whatever. I've discovered after 5 TEDx talks that what you need to do is you need to catch the attention of what they call the curation team, and make sure your application doesn't get thrown in the no pile immediately, because they're not looking for a reason to have you audition. They're looking for the first reason not to. So A, you can't give them any reason to throw you in the no pile. B, whatever you have is the first, whether it's a 10-word elevator pitch they want or title, subtitle, it's got to be really interesting, intriguing, raise a question in the mind of the people on the team so they feel like they have to read on. And the last one I did was called Mental Health and the Orgasm, Treat Your Depression Single-Handedly.
I haven't seen that one.
Well, you
didn't send me that one.
You won't.
Are we good enough friends now that you'll send it to me?
No, Big Ted turned it down, and I have no way to get my hands on it. So I'm pitching it again to other TEDx's in hopes that whoever at TED.
I'd buy a ticket.
I know. Well, I got a standing ovation. I went on stage and I said, mental health and orgasm, treat your depression single-handedly. I love my iPhone, but it's my second favorite handheld device. And it was brilliant, spectacular. Had a great standing ovation. And then something about it, Ted said no. So I'm pitching it again in hopes that I can slip it through. But that's what people pay me for is if you go to my website, yourtedxcoach.com, there's a PDF, it's free, put your email in it, and it's 6 things you can do to kill your chances of getting a TEDx. So first I teach them, here's what not to do, and then here's what to do. Because I had a friend who applied 80 times, and she had a company helping her. and it was an okay application. I mean, I's dotted, T's crossed, but dull.
Yeah.
I said, Amy, let's work it out. Bear in mind, she'd sent it in 80 times, no auditions, no bookings. Within 5 applications of us working it over, she's now doing TEDx Boston.
Nice.
That's what people pay me for, is that creative, you know, get their attention, keep their attention, make sure they have to audition you.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I've got a 10 minutes to 9.
I know. I'm keeping an eye on the time. You're a busy man.
Yes, well, you know, it's a tough time in the world. I mean, the suicides in the U.S. are on the rise. Last year it was 1 every 11 minutes. They think this year maybe 1 every 4 or 5 minutes. So it's unfortunately a growth industry at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it. So I'm liking the gold thing. That's quite cool. That's your forehead.
My forehead?
You realize your green screen's gone, right?
Oh my gosh, what happened? How did I lose my green screen? Where's my living room? Sorry about that. Would you like me to try and bring it back? Is it?
No, this was like, because as soon as you were talking about your TEDx talk, now your ear is like glittering as well.
I'm sorry.
Can you not see that? What can you see?
I can see the green screen, and I can see my little pixelations around my forehead. Looks like I'm about to.
It's your cosmic vibes. It's your magical brain, basically.
Or it's Star Trek, and I'm about to be beamed up. Maybe that's what it is.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Usually I've never had the green screen disappear. Choose virtual background. Oh my God. Oh, there it is. Okay, let's see if we can make it come back. It won't come back. Oh my God, my living room is gone. Okay, let's try another one. Oh no. I guess I'm gonna have to restart.
No worries.
Sorry about that.
But I love this. I'm gonna try and take a little picture of you. All right, smile. Smile. Right, brilliant. That's I've taken a little screenshot of us. Well, that was amazing. I hope I haven't missed anything of all the things we're going to be talking about.
No, I don't think so. And I've got to run because it's a webinar, actually.
You've got to get ready. Thank you so much. So I know you're known as the mental health comedian. I will put all your handles when I put this out by there as well. And any final thought? Well, stay groovy. And thank you so much.
Groovy, baby.
Groovy, baby. Yep, baby.